What's up everybody, welcome to this video. We're going to be discussing my journey at ATP Flight School, getting my private pilot license, from everything to the timeline, how many lessons I had, how many simulator sessions I had, as well as my thoughts on the process, things I did like, things I didn't like. We'll also be talking about my check ride itself, how it went, how I felt before, how I felt after, and then I'll also give any pieces of advice or thoughts I have on the overall process as well. For those of you who are new here, my name is Luke. I'm a private pilot working on my instrument rating at ATP Flight School. The whole goal of my channel is to document my journey towards becoming an airline pilot, to motivate and inspire others on their aviation journey, as well as provide general aviation content because it's what I enjoy doing. Now, if you get value out of these videos that I'm providing, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. I also have links in the description to all the pilot gear and study materials and resources that I use and that I love. If you're preparing for flight school or you are a student, you can just click on those and that would help me out as well. Okay, so quick disclaimer. I've had some of you commenting and some of you are confused about my weekly update videos. And what I mean by that is some of you have seen that I posted the flight I did with my wife where it was just me and her flying the plane and how I had my private pilot license. But then you saw that I posted a solo cross-country video after that. So as far as these weekly updates, the weekly updates are not actually up to date. Right now we're getting towards the end of July and I'm talking about everything that happened towards the end of June. So I'm a little bit behind on those weekly update videos. I'm trying to get caught up to speed, but it can be a little difficult when I'm trying to film videos, trying to study and get everything done. So if you're curious, right now I'm actually endorsed and ready to take my instrument check ride. But hopefully in the next week or two, I can get caught up on these weekly updates and describe everything that's happened as far as my instrument training goes. Hopefully that makes sense and hopefully you can bear with me. Okay, so let's get into it. Now, how did my private pilot license journey go at ATP Flight School? Now, if you read online, I saw before I started ATP Flight School, some people recommend that you get your private pilot license at a mom and pop shop or a different school, and then you go into ATP credit private, meaning you already have your private pilot license, and then you finish your ratings and certificates from there on out. Now, I didn't do that. I just decided to do the whole thing with ATP, and I'd say one of the cons is that I actually got through really fast. So if you're curious about the timeline, from day one at ATP to the day I passed my private pilot check ride, it took me under 11 weeks. So it was about 10 and a half weeks of training. And something that's even crazier is that I was endorsed to take my check ride just 8 weeks after day one. So if you're curious what that means, your instructor, once you've finished all your training, you need to be signed off or endorsed by a certified flight instructor to go take your check ride, to get your actual license. So it only took me 8 weeks from day one to get endorsed for that check ride, which is pretty fast. Now, as far as some of the other numbers, looking at my phone and looking at my logbook, I added it up, and these may not be perfect or exact numbers, but I think we did about 31 flights in total. And then it looks like we did about 7 simulator sessions. Some of those sessions were 2 hours in the simulator. I don't think I ever had one shorter than 2 hours. And then some of them were about 3, maybe 3.5 hours. And the simulators are actually free. You can do them as much as you want as long as they're available. And if you're an instructor, hopefully you get a good one. Sometimes they're willing to do extra sims with you, but that kind of just depends on the instructor you have. But it is nice that they are free. I mean, you are paying for everything. Now, I would say it was a pretty good experience overall. I don't really have much to compare it to other than the videos that I'm watching online. And again, I don't know everything. I'm just talking about my experience personally. I enjoyed it. I felt like it went really fast. And it definitely was sipping out of a fire hose, as people say it. But I enjoyed it. I had an instructor who wanted to fly a lot, so we were flying every single day as long as there was a plane available and as long as the weather was good. And luckily there were lots of planes available and the weather was generally pretty good. And I think I maybe only went out of town one time for maybe a weekend or two. As far as some of the things that I didn't really love about getting my private pilot license here, and I mentioned this in one of my other videos, during your training, you'll do certain types of performance takeoffs and landings. For example, you'll do a short field takeoff or a soft field takeoff, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A short field takeoff, you're trying to either clear an obstacle or get off the runway, lift off as quick as you possibly can. And a soft field is, for example, maybe you're on a grass runway and it's a different type of takeoff than just doing a normal takeoff. Now, what I didn't love is that at ATP, we didn't really practice those until the last couple hours of training. I wish we had gotten more time to practice those. I don't really know why it is the way it is. That's something that I just didn't totally love about the program because I didn't feel extremely proficient at those takeoffs or landings by the time my check ride came around. Something I really did appreciate though, and I think I mentioned this in my last video, is that they definitely make you feel like you're underprepared, which makes it so that when you go and take your check ride, I came into it feeling a little bit underprepared, but then I went into it and it was a breeze. I knew everything in the oral really well, and I did pretty well on the flight. So once I finished the check ride, I was like, wow, that actually wasn't insanely difficult. I felt prepared, even though I hadn't felt prepared before I started the check ride. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, as far as the actual check ride itself, I loved it. I really liked the DPE I was with. He is a current captain at Delta, flying the Airbus 320, I believe. He's also an F-15 test pilot, and he is just a super smart dude overall. So he was teaching me so much in the oral section. I loved it. I was absolutely geeking out, and I think he was too. I would say the oral took about an hour and a half, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. And it seemed like a pretty standard oral from everything you can watch on YouTube or from what my instructors were telling me. And then we went up and we did our flight, and it was pretty simple. We just went out, flew the first point or two on my navlog. We did the maneuvers, and they were all within standards. So then we just went back and we did all the landings and takeoffs we needed. And it was a pretty smooth flight. Weather was really good that day, which helped. And then we walked in, and he didn't really say anything after the flight ended, so I wasn't 100% sure I passed. I thought I did. And then once we had sat down, he said, all right, let's print off your certificate. Congratulations, you're now a private pilot. So it was a pretty great experience to be handed that certificate and knowing that I could now go and fly other passengers. And as you've seen, I've flown with my wife. I just flew with my brother-in-law and father-in-law 2 days ago. I'm gonna be posting a little vlog about that. It's seriously the best thing ever. Now, as far as some of my advice for you, if any of you care to listen, I would generally say that if you find a mom and pop shop that has, again, good plane availability, the instructors are willing to fly as much as you want, you're committed and everything like that, you might want to go and do your private with them. And I would also ask them if they do any soft field landings and takeoffs that aren't on a paved runway, so you can actually get some experience landing on a dirt strip or a grass strip. If your school does that, I think that's valuable experience that I wasn't able to get. And my other piece of advice is, after you do get your private pilot certificate, to go out and rent a plane, whether that's by yourself or with another fellow private pilot, and to go out and just gain some experience flying in the real world without all the policies that you'll have at your school. ATP does a really good job of providing a very safe training environment, and they set certain policies about certain times you can fly with weather and the amounts of fuel you have to have on board. And I think them doing that creates a really safe environment. But when you go out there and you find a plane to rent, you realize that half of the policies ATP has aren't actually legal regulations that you must follow. So it's good experience to actually realize you are the pilot in command. You're responsible for making sure that that airplane is airworthy and keeping your passengers safe and piloting and getting yourself from point A to point B. I think going out and renting an airplane after you get your license, even if it's just maybe 1, 2, or 3 flights, is super valuable experience. And I already feel like I've become a much better pilot having gone and done that, instead of just staying in the curriculum and flying with an instructor in the right seat. Now, that is all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. Again, there's links in the description for all the pilot gear you need. And if you have any questions, reach out and I'm happy to help. And subscribe for the next videos, and safe flying.